What's going on, folks? Welcome to Kids Today with Dr. Kamal Jones. I am Dr. Kamal Jones. On today's episode, we have a special guest. I've been looking forward to talking with him since seeing him launch his inspiring campaign. He is a former Atlanta public school teacher and education policy expert and candidate for the Atlanta Board of Education, District 6, Dr. Jonathan Leon. Dr. Leon, welcome to Kids Today.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I'm excited for this conversation and appreciate you bringing me on.
Appreciate you, my guy. I want to jump right in, man. For folks who don't know you, who are you and why did you wake up one day and decide, you know what, I'm running for the Atlanta School Board?
That's certainly a great way to kick it off. I am Dr. Jonathan Leon. I tell folks all the time I am a father, I'm a husband, and every day that I wake up, I'm trying to change laws for kids. For me, that looks like life beginning in Rochester, New York, where I was born, grew up, raised, and reared. And I was raised in a family that deeply believed in service. My grandfather was a pastor in the community, so a lot of my time, particularly on the weekends, were spent giving back. And even during the week, there were community meetings. So just service became a part of like who we are and what we do. Took an opportunity, went to Syracuse University, really enjoyed myself, did a lot on the student leadership side, and thought I was headed to law school. However, I was studying abroad and started to reflect on the type of work that made me happy, right? And like what I would be doing. And the one thing that kept coming back to me was the work that I was doing with the fraternity and our after school program, go to high school, go to college. We were at a middle school in Syracuse weekly, and we worked with those students around personal and professional development. And that was the thing that I kept coming back to that made me happy. So took some time, talked with a mentor who had done Teach for America and decided to pursue that.
Mm.
Teach for America brought me from Syracuse to Atlanta, and I found my purpose. I tell folks, spent that time as a classroom teacher right here in Atlanta Public Schools, absolutely fell in love with the work, and then eventually decided, like, hey, these systems are not going to change themselves.
Yeah.
So we need to get into this policy, systems, and structural work. And that's where I spent the majority of my career trying to change laws to support and help kids.
I'm curious, setting the stage really for our listeners. You know, we all have kind of heard of school boards. What does a school board actually do? What is the job of the school board?
So I'll break it down for you in this way. When you think of a school system or a school board, just think of them as like your elected neighbors for all intents and purposes. There are a few really important things that school boards do. One is pass the budget for the school system. Most of our schools in this country are funded by local taxes,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the majority of folks who are paying into a tax system in a city, into a state, wherever, a lot of that money is going to your local school system. So what does that mean? That means in Atlanta, we have about 48,000 students and we have a $1.8 billion budget that we're responsible for passing. That budget is a moral document. It sets aside our priorities, how much our teachers are going to get paid, how much actually goes into instruction and into classrooms, things like transportation, nutrition. All of that is controlled by the budget. Very, very, very intense, very deep process. $1.8 billion is not a small piece of
No.
change. So that's a key part of what the school board does. The second really important thing that a school board does is set the policy for the district, right? And this is an interesting like
Yeah.
differential with school boards and probably some of the other elected bodies because the school boards aren't necessarily, and in particularly in Atlanta's cases, the executives that are delivering on this,
Mm,
right? That's your superintendent. And the
sure.
school board has the responsibility of hiring, firing, and evaluating. So school board can set the policy conditions for a district. They can say, hey, we want to ensure equity across the board. Here's our statement and commitment on equity. But oftentimes there's a key line at the end of every policy that is passed. It says the superintendent shall create the programs or shall enact or shall
Mhm.
do because board members aren't actually responsible for that level of operation for the district. So it's not really our job. It's not the school board's job to go in, hire, fire teachers, hire, fire principals. It's really left upon the superintendent. So we got budget setting, we got setting up these policy conditions, We've got hiring, firing, and evaluating our superintendent. And the final and like very much key piece of what a school board member does is monitoring the progress of the district,
Mhm.
right? School board should be setting goals for where students are going, setting the vision, the path, and ultimately empowering their superintendent to go do that work and get to those outcomes.
You talk about setting the path. Are there ways where you have seen APS be set on a positive path, a path from the school board that you have felt, man, this is what exactly what we should be doing? And on the other side, are there places where you feel like things have fallen short in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so this is almost 16 years of this work for me in this city and with this district. So we've seen ebbs and flows, understanding uh, how we on how we move students forward, right? I've lived through post cheating scandal, through turnaround plan, all the way to and through like this stability towards the district, some shifts in our leadership, but ultimately us trying to understand like how we can get faster, get bolder on moving kids forward and really progressing them academically.
Yeah.
So things that have really done well and looked well are one thing like our literacy policy. We passed a policy as a board that basically says, hey, literacy, like one, we're in a crisis. In Atlanta public schools, a third of students are reading on grade level, and that's our third through eighth graders. But we have a graduation rate of almost 90%. So what does that like mean for our district? Like how are kids progressing through not meeting the mark for reading, but then we're allowing them to enter into college and career
Yeah.
without the prerequisite skills to be successful.
Yeah.
So our literacy policy named literacy as a crisis, not only here in our city, but across our country. And it set aside resources. It aligned what we were doing academically, what we were going to be doing with our budget, what like everything became
Yeah.
pointed towards literacy. And that's a powerful example of how policy can be used as a tool for change. Now, on the flip side of that, when you have policies that are being used as tools for change, you need the right conditions around them. And like what I tell people to do oftentimes is like think about concentric circles. So just a circle outside of a circle, outside of a circle, outside of a circle. We know at the center of the circle for schools is going to be the children, the content, and their teachers,
Yeah.
right? That's the core. That is the instructional core. So any changes that we make around that circle or anything that we're trying to do needs to be coherent and point directly into that instructional core. So oftentimes, right, you see competing priorities or things like the political environment or stakeholders not being aligned or communication not happening the right way. And ultimately, it messes up that coherence that we ultimately want to build so that we're
Sure.
getting to the instructional core in a way that matters. And really, that's just been a massive, massive issue. It's a massive issue for districts across the country, but
Totally.
particularly here. We're not passing policies that are really coherent, getting at that instructional core.
It's really interesting. You bring up the ways that politics and all of these sort of outside things can interject or can kind of get in the way sometimes of some of the things that you're trying to get done. You know, we've been seeing a lot of these national conversations on a number of on a number of facets related to education. I'm curious. One thing that has come up a lot has been one, parental involvement, right,
Absolutely.
with the schools. I'm curious first with that, you know, how you have thought about that, and what are the ways that you think the schools can foster a stronger relationship between parents and the school while still maintaining a level of decision making power, right, and not having parents come and necessarily dictate the entire curriculum either.
Yeah. Parents have to be viewed as the amazing partners that they are, right? Um, if you have an environment that is one welcoming for parents, welcomes their input, you're providing them information, they're supporting teachers, school administrators in their journey to deliver those students the education and content that they need. Like that's when I see family engagement work and it works well because it's deep and it's real and it's authentic. Like we know that these are community schools. We have teachers who come from the community, teaching the students that come from the community, that are working with the parents that are in and come from the community. So when those like kind of ingredients are mixed right, you absolutely see an amazing, amazing outcome around family engagement. But oftentimes, though, we're missing a ton of marks there,
Yeah.
right? either the schools aren't welcoming or inviting environments, or we haven't built systems and structures that support parents who maybe didn't have the best academic experience, right? So school for them could actually be a trigger. And when they do receive that phone call for the support from teachers, that takes them back to the ways that they might have been dehumanized in their school environments, right? So it's really about how you can create the conditions for really powerful engagement. Engagement has to be two ways. It has to be open. You have to be communicative. You have to be learn alongside of one another and be open to that learning. And ultimately, it has to be done equitably.
Yeah.
We know that families have they are competing priorities, right? Like life happens.
Yeah.
Folks need to put food on the table.
Yeah.
So ensuring that you're being as equitable as possible, whether that be recording a virtual meeting, blasting it out via email, via text, and maybe a robocall, just to triple down and make sure that families are receiving the information that they need. Like those are the types of things that I've seen go a very long way when it comes to supporting our parents and families.
Yeah, yeah. On that idea of equity, and again, thinking about some of these national topics, we've seen things like book bans and conversations around that come up. I see in the background you have the love, justice, equity. What are your thoughts on creating access to a diverse array of literature for our kids to be able to engage with in the libraries?
I think that's so important. Students learn best when they are interacting with content that is relevant to them.
Yeah.
The easiest way to make that happen is to make sure that it's culturally relevant and responsive to the needs of our students. So that was like honestly one of the worst kind of outcomes of COVID and this
Mm,
like huge like kind of right-wing push into schools around banning books and banning content and what should and should not be allowed. What's really interesting, I think, as you zoom out around the entire topic is you see this expansion of access to knowledge, right? Whether that be AI, whether that be uh, folks accessing internet younger and younger and younger, and just repositories of knowledge and attempting to learn. YouTube, master classes, like all of the things, what have you, and how the ways in which we can attempt to restrict that knowledge only compounds really Black and brown families a
yeah.
lot of times. And those impacts we're seeing kind of, and those rollbacks are really seeing a removal of their faces, their voices. And that's something that we want to absolutely fight and push against. I know here in our district, we've absolutely, even with some state policies and laws have passed around, have been able to kind of work around and continue to support students to see themselves in the content in which they're interacting with. Because again, that's that instructional
Yep.
core,
Yep.
that content with teachers and students, like the ways in which we can really protect that and hold that in the center of all that we do, we're going to move students and we'll get them there faster.
Yeah. You touched on an earlier point about things that parents and families might bring from their own educational experience into the classrooms or into their lens when they're thinking about their child. I'm curious, I want to kind of zoom into young Jonathan, right?
Yeah.
But before Dr. Leon. And I'm curious when you were a child, like thinking back to that time in your life, are there things that you can pull from your own experience as a student, things that you're like, man, I really wish that Atlanta Public Schools would do these things, or things that you're like, man, I'm glad that we do, this thing
Yeah.
a little bit better?
It's both. So, and I didn't understand this until I had my own children and like I'm
Mm,
navigating what the public education system is. And I have two babies, one's 16, and one's 6. And my 6-year-old is on the spectrum. So I'm seeing both sides of like what how to advocate and what is out there. So when I think about my upbringing, I really had to reflect on all of the hoops that my mother had to jump through in order for me to get an excellent education, right? Like I didn't at the time, I didn't understand why I needed to get into a Regents Academy program in New York in order to be set up to do an IB AP program. And why did I bounce from program to program across the city instead of going to the school right around the corner from us in order to set me up to become Dr. Leon,
yep,
right?
yep,
So
yeah,
I didn't have any perspective on like how much it actually takes to advocate and ensure that like you are pushing for what your child needs.
mhm,
And again, I get both sides of that, raising both my boys. Where academically we're pushing. My oldest is actually at Georgia Tech right now as
Nice.
a research externship. So half
Okay.
of his day he's at the high school, half of the day he's like doing real research because he wants to be an engineer, right? That program, we push for that, right? Like we have to
Yep.
ensure that those types of opportunities are available to our students all over the city, right? Because they're life changing. They're amazing. He's coming home
Yep.
teaching me about lattices and engineering concepts that foreign to me,
You're like,
but he's in
this
it
is
and he's
awesome, man.
loving it, right? And when you see, again, when you imagine that, all right, so we're getting ready to make sure that he can get to Georgia Tech every day,
Yeah.
right? Think of the hoops that parents have to jump through oftentimes to ensure kids are getting what should just be a right is tough.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I really want to work on is accessibility. When we talk about equity and we talk about it in a real and serious way, we can't, in our city of Atlanta, you can look at it pretty much as like a circle. We have a huge highway, 285 that goes around the city. And then there's one highway that cuts it in half, 20, and it goes north and south Atlanta. When we look at North Atlanta, you see more affluent, it is more white, our academic outcomes are much better. When you come under 20, this is where the majority of our Black families are in our
Sure.
city. And those academic outcomes do not match what is happening on the north side, even though we make up as Black students and Black families the majority of this school district. So if we're not serving the
Yeah.
majority in ways that are equitable, when we're talking about access to uh, high quality academic programming, access to high quality educators in our classrooms, then we're not doing the work that needs to be done. So that level of access is just one of the things that, again, back as a child, didn't understand. Seeing it now as a
Yep.
parent and as
Yep.
someone who wants to be a part of changing it, knows how important it is, and how life-changing that could be.
Mm. I'm really curious. You touched on these disparities that exist in this gap within Atlanta. How do we engage on that in a way that is measurable? Like, what does it look like over a measurable period of time to see success on that?
Yeah, again, it comes back to equity and it comes back to us being truth tellers. If we know that our Black and brown students are not achieving at the level in which our white students, their white counterparts are, we got to call that out and we got to be real about that. And we need to set targeted goals and measures and metrics towards that. We know some, for all intents and purposes, the system is working exactly the way that it should for some people,
Yeah.
right? But if it's not for others, then what are the resources that are needed? What are the responses that are needed? Where can we innovate and really think about the ways that we're delivering education? Like what type of education? Are things being individualized to students? Are we really getting at their aptitude and talking to who they want to be and what they want to be and what they're like actually set up for?
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I oftentimes spend a lot of time thinking about. And it's really some of the policies that I'll be bringing to the board. Like every student needs an individualized learning plan and metrics that are setting them out for success, right? We give aptitude tests, we do like PSATs and
Mhm.
all this stuff, but the data doesn't go anywhere, right? We
Yeah.
just have it. Like how can we really take that and empower students and say, hey, you say you're passionate about this, you really have a lot of aptitude for this. Here's the program exactly for you. This is a pathway for you to take to go off, be successful, and live up to your fullest potential, right?
Yeah.
We want thriving families and thriving communities, and we got to invest in that. We know who needs the support.
Yeah, no, we totally have the information, and it feels like a lot of times we're sort of just like banging our heads over and over. But I appreciate you laying out some really concrete things that we can do differently for these kids. You mentioned the idea of community.
Yeah.
You were born and raised in New York, but you've been in Atlanta for a long time now. What was it about the community in Atlanta that made you and your family say, "Yep, this is where we want to be"?
I got the opportunity to see so many people that looked like me doing so many great and amazing things. And I truly, truly believe like in the power of Atlanta
Mm.
and I oftentimes tell folks like if Atlanta public schools can't get it right for Black and brown children,
Mm.
then I'm really worried about the rest of the country.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I know we can get it right because we do have a history and legacy of getting it right. I think about our first African American superintendent, Dr. Alonzo Crum. I shout him out like in my campaign
yeah.
announcement. He's definitely on my material because he he preached about this idea of a community of believers,
Mm.
right? What does it mean when we get our business class and our deep religious communities, and we get our workers and our advocates, and we
Yeah.
all come together around the ideas that we believe in our children, their ability to succeed, and we know that they're the future of
Yes.
this city. So, like that idea of everybody like being all in around this community of believers is a central part of my campaign and just a central part of like the work that I've done. Like I've been a community organizer
Yeah.
because I know that people built power and people driven power will get us further than anything else. So being in this community, one that is so rich and deep in that legacy and that history, kept me here. Like it felt
Yeah.
home because folks like looked like family and they opened up their arms and they accepted and like they showed so much love and genuine appreciation that it became it became home. And I wouldn't be any other place but here.
No, it's so beautiful. You mentioned Dr. Krim, and I saw his name invoked, if you
Yes.
will, across your materials, which I appreciate because for me, as someone who is actively trying to learn about every kind of sector that exists, especially for children, learning more about his story as a direct result of what you put in your materials was super inspiring. A lot of what I think about with him now, when if I were to summarize it into one word, is legacy. He really left this legacy. When you think about a legacy building on top of that foundation that him and other leaders like him have left here, what's one thing if you were to walk away from hopefully getting this role and walk away after? What's one thing that you would say, yes, like this is something I want to be part of the work or the impact that I did?
I think one major tangible change is going to be fuller supports for our teachers.
Mm.
It's just a key. You can't have a school without teachers. You can't have a district without teachers. So a key lever and the folks who are really, really, really on the ground interacting with our babies every single day are our teachers. But in what ways are we supporting them?
Yeah.
Right? Like how are we ensuring that they can be their best and like the same holistic supports that we need to offer and provide for our students,
Yeah.
we got to be really, really intentional about offering and providing those for our teachers. One, so that they can be well, but two, so that they can be up to the best
Yes.
possible like the craft of teaching, right? Like how can we ensure that they are performing like optimally?
Yeah.
What resources do they need? What supports might they need? Where do we need to grow, right? Where can we provide coaching supports, take more off their plate so that they can focus on the innovative lessons and ideas? Where can we bring in supports to augment that, right? If I'm a STEM teacher, like, why isn't the district holding a bank of STEM resources and engineers that can come in and provide some project-based learning or lessons for us, right? Like, there's just like really small tasks and really small things that we can do that can have these ripple effects.
Yeah.
We could really start moving. Like, my goal is like really start moving a flywheel when it comes to
Mhm.
like the policy conditions that we can control, the budgetary conditions that we can control, and the way in which we're evaluating like where we're going, right? So
Yeah.
flywheel, few turns is tough in the beginning, but ultimately, like once those things get going, it gets easier and that flywheel starts to really, really move.
Yeah.
So really a lot of my policy, a lot of my pushes, a lot of my conversations now are really focused on some of these conditions for teachers and the ways in which we can improve those. And ultimately, that is going to be the thing that's going to improve our student outcomes.
Yeah, they are the engine of the school. My mom is now a retired 40-year public school educator in New York. So that definitely, I see her in
Yeah,
my mind still, up at 4 a.m. grading, work and
yeah,
just
do it
putting
and they
in that
love it.
time. It's so powerful. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for stepping up for the kids of Atlanta. How can people support? When is the election? How can people best support? Where can people find more information?
Absolutely. So our election is November 4th. So excited as we're building this campaign, this people powered movement, this movement for community to be all in. for our students. You can find out more about our platform at drleonforaps.com. Check us out. Follow us across all of the social platforms at Dr. Leon for APS. We love your support. I tell folks it is time, it is talent, and it is treasure. So the ways that you can donate, you can sign up to volunteer, and you can definitely spread the word with us and for us. And excited again to have this conversation. So it's so needed, Dr. Jones. Again, a lot of folks don't really understand how important our local school boards are for delivering on the future of our communities. So I appreciate you having me here today and giving me the opportunity to share a bit more.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, my friends, that is our show today. Thank you again so much to Dr. Leon for taking the time to be with us today. As always, please make sure to like the video, subscribe, and we'll catch you next week, Tuesday, with another episode and more updates on what's happening with children throughout our country. And until then, this is Kids Today.